Hello everybody and welcome to Whiz, your family-friendly podcast where we discuss D&D Onslaught, Dice Masters, Heroclix, and the other entertaining games made by Wizkids. I'm WizDad and I'm that secret Wizkid factory that makes their minis. Sometimes I knock it out of the park with quality and put little, secret primes and chases in the same boosters. Most of the time though, I make bricks that just have the rare prime only. Sorry. I will be your guide for navigating the competitive and casual scenes of the WizKids Triforce of gaming. It's Heroclix Friday. Today we are continuing our Silver Age review of pieces you need to not necessarily play, but remember that they exist when you're playing in the upcoming Silver Age tournaments. But first, before we jump into Silver Age, as always, let's go to the WizKids Progress Report.
Kowalski, Progress Report.
So it is the beginning of the month, so I will, as usual, or what I'm trying to do as usual, I guess, is at least go through what the solicits currently have slated for February. So, kicking things off, let's talk about the things we know when they are coming out. Let's see, February 1st, which I guess already happened, just, yesterday. We have the Dungeons & Dragons Pit Fiend, the Mind Flayer, and the Blue Dragon Funny Plush, PH Funny Plush. So these are little plushes of like a Mind Flayer, a Pit Fiend, and a Blue Dragon. The pictures of them, they do look pretty adorable. Even the Mind Flayer looks pretty adorable. So if you're a big Baldur's Gate fan, the Mind Flayer is not as creepy looking as the one in Baldur's Gate 3. So maybe go pick them up because I actually think it looks pretty great. Then on the 7th, we have the D&D Icons of the Realm Adult Deep Dragon mini. Well, not so, it's a mini, but it's a big one, right? And then we have the DC Heroclix Iconics Harley Quinn Roses for Red. And we haven't seen any previews of the Roses for Red. We have seen all of Sherlock Holmes and King Kong, which we'll cover here in a minute. But we haven't seen any Roses for Red, which I think is weird. Or at least unusual. And then finally we have the February 14th, just as I mentioned, on Valentine's Day, we get Sherlock Holmes that comes out. And then there are 3 other releases that are supposed to come out in February, but we have not got an exact date yet. We have the Green Dragon Trophy Plaque for D&D Replicas of the Realm. We have a D&D Classic Collection, continuing that with Monsters K through N. I see a Minotaur in there, so that's kind of do it. I assume there's probably like a Medusa too. That would kind of make sense. And then finally we have the Gotham Villains Monthly OP Kit. Let's talk a little bit about the Heroclix releases that have been previewed and are coming out. I'm going to start with that Gotham City Villains Monthly OP Kit. So, if I am correct, that is where we get the Joker, the Penguin, and Two-Face, and it comes with the Riddler Legacy card and it doesn't come with the Mystery card. The Mystery card comes with the other Gotham one that we got in December. So, these are interesting pieces. OP kits, I feel like WizKids has been doing a better job with OP kits, making them interesting, new releases. As you know, I am a Gotham City Underworld fan. But let's talk about some of these pieces. So you start with the Joker, 55 points. Let's see who's under that mask, shall we? At the beginning of the game, you may replace the Joker with a character of 50 points or less and the monster keyword on their starting click. This game, that character can use the standard powers the Joker can use on his starting click and has Batman enemy. And when this character would take damage, instead replace them with the Joker on his starting click. So it's kind of, if you think of Chameleon back in the day where he could take disguises, basically any monster 50 points or less, you could replace the Joker and they would effectively get Plasticity, Super Senses, and Exploit. Now the downside is if they take a hit, then it pops back over to the Joker, and he's not great. I mean, he's 6 clicks for 55, which isn't bad. Poison, the whole dial on the special attack power, but deals damage even if moved or placed this turn. So there are worse things he could turn into. But the key thing is it gets you figures that typically can't be on Gotham City Underworld. Like, this enables Carnage Silver Surfer to now be on Gotham City Underworld. And that is interesting. It allows, now with Harley, you can already get the Masters of Evil trade, right? The engine in there. This would allow you to do that too. And I'm pretty sure it still would allow you to, because it doesn't say specifically on here, they can't be replaced. A lot of things that allow you to bring something in, like for example, the pilots of the vehicles, when they pop out, it specifically says they can't be replaced. I believe you could replace the character that you bring in at the beginning. I think. Unless the replacement rules say they can't be replaced. But I'm pretty sure you might be able to. So you could do Masters of Evil to get that engine going. But it is interesting. Like, it's quirky enough where it's like, hey, I gotta think about that. And guess what? Penguin 002, the next figure in this OP kit, also does the same thing. Worded the exact same way, except it's Penguin. It's still for Monster, but he has way better keywords. Like, way better. And it says this game, that character can use the standard powers the Penguin can use. So the Penguin wouldn't. You would get Poison for Joker, because that is a standard power he could use. You would not get the Penguin's attack power here that you have free, choose Energy, Explosion, or Blades, Claws, Fangs. But the cool thing about the Penguin, who is also 55 points, is he has Stealth, Outwit, and Mastermind. Those are great powers to give someone. Like Carnage Silver Surfer with Outwit, protection, based off of the Cosmic Energy. Having Stealth, which he gets from the free symbiote he gets, but you can not play that. So he would have Stealth, Unoutwittable Mastermind, and Unoutwittable Outwit. Like, that's really solid. You run the risk, of course, if he takes damage. You have to replace him back on the Penguin. I get that. But it's something to play around with, right? I think it is, at least. The last figure in the OP kit is Two-Face. He has Leadership, Perplex. He has kind of like his swapping dials. The problem with swapping dials, in my opinion, is that they're very short, obviously, because a Heroclix dial is only 12 clicks long. So when you shorten that, and he's 50 for 5 points, but there's no reducers, and it's kind of, you don't know which one you're going to. It's interesting, but not good enough, in my opinion. Now, the other figures that we saw, which I will go a little bit more into detail, probably in a later episode, we did see let's talk about Sherlock Holmes. So we saw all of Sherlock Holmes. The set itself comes with 2 versions of Sherlock Holmes. The one where he's wearing his usual detective gear, and then the other one where he's, gonna punch somebody, fight somebody. So there's 2 versions. There is the detective one, which is 60 points. He has a trait, shape change. Another trait, when Sherlock Holmes takes damage after resolutions, you may replace him with Sherlock Holmes, the other one, on the same click number. And then he has another trait. When Sherlock Holmes or a friendly character that is adjacent or has the detective keyword is targeted by an opposing character's Outwit or Perplex after resolution, give a friendly mystery card a clue token. Opposing characters within 4 squares can't use Safeguard Outwit or Protected Outwit. That's pretty good. Like, being able to take away Outwit protection is something you should always monitor. And we've seen in the champion clicks, a team succeed. I believe it was Joe Alves, Josafa. His team functioned around mystery cards and getting some of those bonuses with them. Sherlock is a little pricey at 60, 77 clicks at least, 19 defense up top with super senses, PD, sidestep, Outwit. Like, that's pretty good. He's detective, obviously, but the likelihood you're getting targeted by Outwit or Perplex is pretty high. So I feel like getting those extra clue points, mystery points on a card. A clue token is what I was trying to say. I think that's pretty big. Like, I think that's significant. And even more significant is the fact that you can... Everyone within 4, opposing within 4, doesn't have outwit protection. That's pretty big as well. Now, punching Sherlock Holmes... It's okay. I'm not going into detail too much about it. It's not that great. You probably stay on the other one. Dr. Watson, 60 points. Trade free action. Choose an adjacent friendly character. If that character can use Outwit, they can use it an additional time. Cool. Super cool. For all characters with this trait, when a clue token is placed on a friendly mystery card, after resolution, you may heal a character with the detective keyword 1 click. Also cool. And then he's got damage power, RCE, and support. He's 60 points. He doesn't have a reducer, though, and that's kind of a big negative. Professor Moriarty, I could say that, 45 points. Leadership, when Professor Moriarty uses it and succeeds, he could generate a Moriarty henchman bystander, which those are pretty solid. They have Plasticity, Pen Side, 10 for 1, but Close Combat Expert, and Toughness, and Underworld. So, like, those are very solid henchmen. They could carry your people around. Power action. This one isn't so great. This one is basically kind of like the Justice Lord's trait I've mentioned so many times. Power. Choose an opposing character with 1 or more action tokens and deal them 1 unavoidable damage. If that character isn't KO'd, heal them 1 click. What is interesting, I will say about that, now that I look to it, it doesn't have a range. It is all just map wide. So if you have him hang out in the back, he can potentially help you finish off somebody that may have gotten to a stop click. So I take that back. That power is a little bit better. I think, I think that could be interesting. And then he has a special damage power, Outwit, Perplex, Protected Outwit. He's got Mastermind, he's got TK. Like, he's a solid support piece, especially for Detective, because he gives Leadership, Outwit, Perplex, and TK. Like, that's all you could really ask. And he makes, he makes Pogs. So can't fault the guy on that. Next is Irene Adler. We've seen her previewed before. She's okay at 50 points, in cap. Out with prob, and she can use both when on her. Let me try that again. Irene Adler can use both when on her card, as if she occupied the squares of her Adler disguise bystanders. It's a power action to generate the disguises, and you place her on the card, and you basically... When Irene Adler generates Alder disguise bystanders, exactly 1 must have the real printed on the back. Okay. So this is kind of like you put all the disguises out there and you know which one is the real one and you flip it over and it'll say it on the back. That's cool. Now, for the last one is the Hound of Baskervilles. This isn't really anything to write home about. It has a once per game. 50 points, though, for 8 clicks isn't bad. It has stealth. It's just charge blades, shape change. Once per game, when Hound of Baskervilles would be KO'd, instead turn it to click 8 and roll a d6, half heal Hound of Baskervilles equal to the half of the result. Protect a pulse wave. Cool. And then the mystery card is Detective and Past. When a friendly character with a listed keyword uses Outwit to target an opposing character, after resolutions gain 1 clue token. And it's pretty straightforward. At 3, friendly characters you can use Stealth. At 8, you can use Poison. And at 12, you can use Poison, and they deal Penetrating. So, very, very straightforward. We also saw King Kong, which comes out in March 6th, currently. He is a beast, no pun intended. Wrestling dinosaurs and giant insects, Kong can reduce penetrating damage, which is great. Necessary for some of these bigger pieces. Kong deals penetrating damage if he occupies elevated terrain or is attacking 1 or more characters with Flight or Colossal. That's really funny. I like that. He has a 500, 300, 250 point. And think of it this way. His whole dial is Charge. His whole dial is Battle Fury. He's got Impervious except for 4 stop clicks. And then he's got a sprinkled through the dial a special attack power. The special attack power is Super Strength Quake. When he uses Quake, he instead deals 3 damage, and after resolution, generate a Kong Wreckage terrain marker. His stop click is Stop Impervious Regen. Regen is free, but only if Kong has 2 action tokens. And then he has another trait, Kong has Safeguard Outwit. If an opposing force has more characters than yours, Kong may be given 2 costed actions a turn, and may use Willpower twice a turn. Ah. Okay, so that is interesting. Like, that makes, like, 200-point Kong pretty interesting. Like, this is probably a great way to do a Colossal. Because keep in mind, hitting Willpower, you got a great chance because of giant size. So you roll it twice, you're probably getting that. If you build it right, you're probably, you know, gonna do 2 costed actions a turn, hopefully. So being able to get over there, he does have Monster Mystical, so you can use Blackheart to get him out onto the field way faster. I like him, and a lot of other people like him too. He's definitely going to be an Iconics that you want to pick up. Now, there are some terrain markers coming with this. Banana Pile. Characters in these squares have power, heal 1 click. Crushed Bug. Characters holding this terrain can use poison. If they do so, remove this terrain from the game. And then finally, Twisted Metal. When this is targeted by destroy action before destroying it, deal 1 damage to each adjacent character. So that is it for the new releases coming up, the Iconics. Once again, we still don't know roses for red. Hopefully we will know that soon. But let's switch gears and go over to talking about Silver Age, where we're going to kick things off with Xavier School.
Get your gear, little man. We're going fishing. And I mean now.
That's my lame attempt of the Batman changing scenes sound effect, because we have now gone back in time, back to Silver Age. It is now 2018. The world is brighter, except we live in the world of ID cards. Now, luckily for Silver Age, you don't have to worry about ID cards anymore. But we are back in Xavier School. Xavier School at the time was Xavier School, I think, is where I really started taking competitive a lot more seriously. I believe that was the first nationals that I went to was 2018? Because I remember Wolverines, Super Rare Wolverines were everywhere. So because this is a set built around headmasters and ID cards, it does fail some of the Silver Age tests because there's just not as much out there. That's like beneficial, right? Like if you look at like Moira McTaggart at 25 points, leadership perplexed, but only a target another friendly character with X-Men. But you can include 1 student ID card. Well, that doesn't matter, the ID card. So you're paying 25 points for leadership perplex, which is okay. It's not great. So if you're going through Xavier School and just kind of looking at the different, figures, one thing to note is that, remember, X-Men Swap in Silver Age has been neutered a little bit. We don't have Genesis, we don't have APOC, we don't have Professor X, so there's technically no X-Men Swap. We do have, I believe, Magneto is still legal, so you have Brotherhood if you want to go that direction. But some interesting pieces that could still potentially do something. It's kind of hard to find some, like, until you maybe get to the super rares. Even without the student ID aspect of the headmaster, Wolverine's still pretty solid at 50. Leadership perplex, you get to make free a close attack if they damage another friendly character with X-Men keyword. Sidestep if you're closer to their area, which fairly easy to do. He could use flurry, and he's got a stop click. He's not bad for 50. Unfortunately, 50 is kind of highly contested. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's okay, right? It's okay. Looking at the other pieces, unless there's some out here that I'm just missing, there's really not much to talk about even in the super rares. Like, not Gateway, not Emma Frost, because ID cards have kind of the set was so inundated with ID cards, they were built around it. Now, there is a case to be made for something like Chase Angel, not really Chase Cyclops. Iceman is okay, but we have a Legacy Iceman, which is way better. Jean Grey has even kind of fallen off because she was better as a call-in. So you could arguably just kind of, unfortunately, I think skip most, if not all, of Xavier School. Like, that's probably what I'm doing in this case. There's really not enough to talk about. So let's jump over to Avengers Infinity. So Avengers Infinity was an interesting set. It's the one with all the Colossals in it. And now that we're in a 400 point, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into those Colossals. But first, let's run through some of these earlier pieces. The commons, uncommons, and rares and super rares. Pip the Troll. Now remember, we have, this is not the set where we got all the gems. That's later. So this isn't the Pip the Troll that gets the space gem, but he kind of has the space gem, right? Phasing Teleport, Passenger 2, but can carry characters that have flight, or can use Battle Fury. When Pip the Troll is KO by an opponent's attack, choose a friendly character for the rest of the game, they can use Phasing Passenger 2. I only note that because he could carry Battle Fury. That's really the only reason I'm bringing that up. Skipping ahead, Kismet, no. Gamora, Star-Lord, Venom Space Knight. If Venom Space Knight had Symbiote, that would be one thing. And I almost kind of wish they could go back and update some of these older pieces with the keywords. That would be kind of neat. But you know they're not going to end up doing that. The rares in the set, there was nothing really to talk about those either. And this was kind of true during the set, right? Like, it wasn't great to talk about then either. Cosmo, this isn't the Cosmo you want. Now it does have, this Cosmo is 70 points. You prefer the Legacy Cosmo way more than this one. But he does have that damage power, which he only gets on click 2, so never mind. Let's see, Golden Skull is okay at 50 points. Perplex, Leadership, adjacent friendly characters modify attack +1. He gives you those death bots. So, neat. Starshine is not great. Unseen, unfortunately, well, keep an eye on Unseen, especially with Retail. You know, you've still got Surtur, you've still got Mangog, even though he can't pull the sword. You've still got a decent amount of Retail out there. He does have Phasing, Teleport, Stealth. When he uses Phasing, he can use Smoke Cloud at no cost. He has that attack power when an opposing character uses Colossal Retail to make an attack modify its attack -2. He's got the 9 range Outwit Prob, super senses, but succeeds on a 4 through 6. He's still really solid. 65 points is, I would say, is a bit much, but in a 400 point world, that's not bad, right? Like, that's not terrible. And then you've got your chases. Remember, all of these chases were a little weird because they started with phasing. But don't forget, we have the Hell Cycle and the Motorcycle now. So you could give these pieces Charge or Hypersonic to work with the Flurry that they had. So the most popular piece, obviously, was Star Fox, because he has the Perplex, but only to modify value other than damage +2. That's okay. Photon, I think, is pretty solid too. Could help you get around some stop signs because of the damage power free. Place an opposing bystander adjacent to Photon. That's cool. She still works a little bit if there was a combo where you needed to KO an opposing character quickly. Don't forget that does work with like the Trouble, not the Troublemaker, but Trouble Alert Green Arrow, because remember, if you play that one, they get you give them a Pog. So there's a little bit of working with that. I don't know what you could do with it, but once again, I'm going through this list so that way you kind of have a mental note of, oh yeah, this figure exists. I forgot about this. That's kind of where the beauty of Silver Age is finding some of those unique combos with some of this older stuff. But let's talk about the Colossals now. Now, first off, I believe Special Terrain isn't legal. So the shield flying car, unless you play it as the shield flying car, it's not legal as the terrain, like terrain dials. Like, you could play the Dune Buggy as the Dune Buggy, but for 30 points. Which honestly isn't terrible. Like, that's actually not bad. Charge, when Dune Buggy uses it, if Dune Buggy is adjacent to a square of water terrain, modify speed +2. It's 7 clicks and a stop click. I mean, that's not terrible. But if we're going through, Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl, no. Giganto, no. Nebula, as cool as that may be, no. Jakar, no. Yeah, no on Jakar, even at 75. Kronos is a no. These are just too overcosted for what they can do. Sentry 459 is a no. Did I skip Hulk? I did skip Hulk. Hulk is one that, could see some play. Don't forget this Hulk, 350, 250, 150. Has traded Battle Fury. When he attacks one or more characters that can use Shape Change, Super Senses, or Stealth, modifies damage +1. His damage really only gets down to a 3 on click 10, but everything else is a 4 and a 5. When Hulk is targeted without Wit or opposing Perplex, roll a d6, 4 through 6 until your next turn. Hulk has protected Outwit and opposing Perplex. That's solid. Super Strength, which remember is much better than it was back then. Super Strength, when Hulk is given a move action, after resolutions destroy all adjacent pieces of blocking terrain, then he can use Quake at no cost. I didn't mention this when I talked about the Mighty Thor set, but remember those starter Hulks that got the free move in Quake? Well, don't forget Quake is locked now. It's not nearly as good as it used to be. It's locked to that too, I believe. So it's not great that he can use his Quake, but he does have, if he's at 350, he does have 4 stop clicks. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, 150 is okay. Like, that's not bad. Once again, it's something to note, right? Like, this guy could jump out and surprise you. And no one wants to be surprised by a Hulk. It's probably like one of the worst things you want to be surprised about. Giganto and Namor, we know what they can do because they won a world championship, but they were also primarily utilizing ID cards. They're still pretty solid. Not as solid as they used to be, though. Then you got Thanos on his throne. He's okay. Stranger. I honestly forgot he existed. Ego Prime. Ego Prime is interesting. I think when Ego Prime destroys a piece of blocking terrain after resolutions, you may generate Ego antibody bystanders for each piece destroyed. And then Super Strength, when Ego Prime is given a move action after resolutions destroy all adjacent pieces of blocking terrain, then use Quake at no cost. Those Ego antibodies have Sidestep, Plasticity, Super Strength, 10 for 2, and Toughness. It's not bad. It's really not bad. And then you've got the last remaining super rares. Lord Chaos and Master Order. I never really understood this piece enough to be excited about it, but just know that it exists. If I remember correctly, it is Eternity that is banned, because the fact that Eternity has all keywords, so he could get Black Lantern up to 600, which is pretty nutty. Another thing to note with a lot of these colossal pieces, they do have old range values. So for example, Infinity has a 12 range dual target. 600, 300, 150, and 75. Other friendly characters modify speed and range +1, and opposing characters modify speed and range -1, and this continues when she's KO'd. Phasing teleport sidestep, adjacent friendly characters have free, place this character in another square adjacent to Infinity, and then on the top click she has defend invincible, which won't matter. Infinity has a spot in the meta at potentially 75. That's probably it. 18 barrier. I mean, fairly easy to KO at that point, just 4 to knock her down. But if you can give her a little bit more protection, that range of 12 is pretty nice. Like being able to shoot that far, lowering people's speed and range matters a lot. And there's a lot of things out there that could protect people, right? There's a lot of defend. There's, you got Peace Machine out there that can make this easier to, harder to kill her. So I would keep that in mind. Living Tribunal is another piece that I'm kind of like, he didn't have a heyday because he's too overcosted. But now that we have 400, is it any better? The answer is probably no. But, it has at the beginning of each opponent's turn, that opposing force gets action total -1 if it has more characters on it than any other force. When Living Tribunal is KO'd, that effect continues for the rest of the game. Making your opponent have to deal with one less action total can be very detrimental to them. Then you have the whole evidence thing. I won't go into verdicts. 13 range, triple target. At 150, he's only got 7 clicks. He can't be outwitted, but he could be pen side because it's an invulnerability. So I don't love it. But it's something to note, right? Something to note. And then obviously Groot is Groot. Groot is amazing at 20 points. I believe Groot is still legal. Like I'm not crazy that he was like banned, and I don't think he was banned. But Groot is by far the most playable piece out of this as a retail. Those Walking Woods are significant, and no, he's not banned for all those that were wondering. So yeah, I like it. I think it's perfectly fine. Yeah, looking at the ban list, like the Giant Girl from this set, remember, Fantastic Fast Force's Giant Girl is the one that's banned, as is Eternity. But that's really it from this set that has been banned. Or at least temporarily banned. Moving on from Avengers Infinity, we are now, getting a little bit further and further into time and space. We're now at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Unplugged. Now this set I feel like wasn't as, well, I won't say it wasn't as loved, because there was one figure in here I do love and I still love, and that is my sweet Foot Elite Boomerangs. I love these guys. 25 points, 4 clicks. They're still really good, guys. When an adjacent friendly character is KO'd or takes 3 damage, but isn't KO'd, give them an opportunity token. Free action, remove an opportunity token to make an attack or move up to 2 squares. They've got Boomerang. When Foot Elite would miss a ranged attack by 1 or 2, once per turn you may re-roll that attack roll. It's a 10 for 3, but they all have enhancement. They got ESD, sidestep. I still love these guys at 25 points, especially with like the Scott Porters now that kind of give a lot more bonuses. Like you could still build around a Foot Elite team, and while it's not as effective as like carrying a bunch of Foot Elites and like having Sam Cap call people in, they're still on short maps. You can get Foot Elites over there, and you could still set things up to take 3 damage. That's super easy now because we still do have characters that can damage other characters. So you could set one of your figures up to take 3 damage. I'm sorry, my mistake. When an adjacent friendly character is KO'd, so we have the construct still, right? So if you pop someone out with the construct, even the older Wonder Woman 80 constructs, you can still set that up where that construct pops on its own, it's KO'd, they get all opportunity tokens, you zip across the board and you got a lot of attacks. So Foot Elite Boomerangs, do not forget about them. They are still very, very good. And unfortunately, they're really the only Foot Elites that get that. Like, you have Foot Elite Axes, which might have a role, right? Like, they're not bad, but the range, I think, is what makes up for it. And Foot Elite Hammers, for what it's worth, can do it too. Same with the Dynamite. But they're 45 points, and that's way, way, way too much. Looking at some of these other unplugged pieces, there's not really a ton to write home about as far as like the rares. I'm not trying to play Baxter Stockman or Karai. Karai is kind of neat. But let's talk a little bit about, like if you looked at Alapex, 90 points, Hypersonic, it's okay, right? I think where you could potentially play some of these is, let's see, which ones were they? Where are they? Were they in the Fast Forces? Yeah, the Fast Forces. There were the Ninja Turtles in the Fast Forces set that have the continue, the quarter tokens. They start with a quarter token. When they would be KO'd, you remove the quarter token from any friendly character, turn them to click 2. They score 25 points, but they kind of got an extra life. Those are all solid. Like, all the turtles are pretty solid for that. I think, was it Leonardo has the charge. Michelangelo has sidestep flurry when he has no action tokens and he ignores characters. That one's pretty good too. Raphael has running shot, range 2 targets, but only when Raphael has no action tokens. That's solid as well. Then there's also, if I remember correctly, Shredder. Final boss. Opposing characters can't target Shredder with attacks unless they are adjacent or your force only has characters named Shredder on the map. So he can just run around and do things. Precision Strike, Quake. When he uses Quake and targets more than one character, hit characters are dealt 3 instead of 2. And 2 stop clicks. That's not bad. It's honestly not a bad character. Like, this turtle set, some of these were pretty good. And you also have those bystanders. I don't know if you guys remember Mudman. Mudman still exists. 20 points. Sidestep, Quake, Super Senses, Shape Change. He has Plasticity. He starts with life tokens. He gains a life token each time he KOs an opposing character. He starts with 2. When he would be KO'd, if he has a life token, remove 1. Mudman's still solid, guys, at 20 points. Like, he's still very solid. Don't forget Mudman exists. Alright, we're getting a little bit more recent now. We're in the Batman animated series. This is kind of where we start talking about a Gotham City underworld again. A little bit. You've got Leslie Tompkins, 50-point support. That's okay. Commissioner Gordon, the newer Commissioner Gordon is better. Zipping through some. Clock King, probably still not that great. Sorry, Scott Crampton. Not that great in Silver Age either. Maxi Zeus, 40 points, bringing in those Stone Harpies. They're okay. Now, Autonomous still exists in this set. So those Stone Harpies had Autonomous, so they were able to kind of make a little bit of attacks. So, but let's see. J-Man, Poison Ivy, making some. This one makes mushrooms. I'm kind of going through real fast some of these. There's the Joker. There's the other Poison Ivy. Now there was, I feel like, one Poison Ivy in this set that made some thorns. Maybe I'm thinking of like Rebirth or something. I might be thinking about Rebirth. I thought there was a Poison Ivy that made. Is it the Fast Forces? Is there Fast Forces for this one? No, there wasn't. It was a starter set. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about. Biting Vines. Here it is. I was thinking about that. 75-point Poison Ivy. Smoke Cloud. She modifies her defense +1 for each 2 distinct squares of hindering terrain adjacent to her. Free. Generate a Biting Vine, maximum 3, in a square of hindering terrain within 10 squares. That Biting Vine has Flurry, only 9 attack, but Giant Reach 2 and 2 damage. And if it's not within hindered terrain, you have to KO it. Right? So it's immobile, can't move, anything like that. But I remember, 10 range is big. Like, it's really big. So keep that in mind. With all this Gotham City underworld, that's not bad to throw a ton of bystanders. Those Biting Vines also had Autonomous, so keep that in mind as well. The Joker, starter Joker, I kind of always liked as well. I don't know if he's really still relevant, but he is 75 points. He takes a maximum of 2 damage from an attack, Protected Pulse Wave. When he takes damage from an opponent's attack, after resolutions, generate a standard light object named the Joker Bomb within 4 squares. At the beginning of your turn, heal the Joker 1 click. If there are 1 or more unheld Joker Bombs on the map, he can't be healed any other way. And then when he attacks, if his attack roll is doubles, modify damage +3. So he could deal 6 damage if he hits doubles. With tarot cards, other ways of influencing doubles, I don't mind it. Like, I tried to build around that guy at one point. But let's jump back to the super rares. Rare-wise, there's not really much else to talk about. You know, Bruce Wayne, 40 points is a little too much. Baby Doll's okay at 40 points. You've got Title Batgirl, which saw some play before, because she has the Perplex, she has the free half-speed move, she has an Outwit title power. Outwit, when she uses it after resolution, she can use charge at no cost, but only to target the character she outwitted. And then her -3 title power, free, make a close attack targeting each opposing character within range and line of fire, regardless of adjacency. But you don't give normal damage, you give them an action token. That's kind of okay. Ventriloquist was alright. Hawkgirl and Hawkman. Great Ghost. Nothing to write home about there. Zatanna is alright. Now, you obviously got the Trouble Alerts. Trouble Alerts are still really good. Like, still really good to put on your sideline, especially for free. Please, if you're playing Silver Age, do not forget they exist, guys. They are still really, really, really good. Now, you could argue the Troublemakers are better, but having a Firestorm could be make or break a game. Having Wonder Woman to pop in with leadership is also very good. And don't forget, we have the expanding sideline, because it's 2 spaces for every 100 points. So we're back up to 8. So keep that in mind. Flash, Green Lantern, all of those pieces are pretty solid as Trouble Alerts. The last thing I want to mention in this is you've got the 4 objects: Batarang, Venom Harness, Christmas Present, Scarface. Venom Harness is really the only one you should think about. Some of the other ones are okay, but don't forget this set also introduced, I believe it introduced, location bonuses. So you do have Gotham Museum, Gotham City Waterfront, Hacienda, Iceberg Lounge, which I don't think Iceberg Lounge is legal, if I remember correctly. Poison Ivy's Greenhouse is a great one. Gotham City Downtown. So I would have to look and double check some of those maps, but those, if the map is legal, the location bonus should also be legal. So keep that in mind. If you're looking to fill a couple extra points, some of these location bonuses we're about to talk about were pretty good. They're pretty darn good. We get into Secret Wars Battle World now. This one, you know, this is kind of like another trip down memory lane, thinking about the time of when this set came out. This set was okay. There were some interesting pieces in it. Like, you had Alex Wilder, 25 points, Stealth Sidestep, Shape Change, free, this is the damage power. An opponent chooses to outwit Perplex Prob. Alex Wilder can use the chosen powers. It was a cheap way of getting those 25 for 25 points, getting 2 of those. So that's solid. I'm not going to do a deep dive into like every single figure, but there might be some out here that surprise you may not think of. But unfortunately, a lot of this set doesn't age super well. Like, you have pieces like in the super rare Spider Queen, 200 points. I always liked Spider Queen, but she just doesn't do enough for that point value. Region at 240, 100. Leadership Perplex, when Region uses Perplex to target another character, modify +2. That's the Baron of the Battle World thing. When Region KOs an opposing character of 50 points or more, you may choose a standard power that character can use for the rest of the game. Region can use that power. That's sweet. And then he has, Region has Protected Outwit, Pulse Wave, and Penetrating Psychic Blast. At the beginning of your turn, choose an improved targeting ability to use into your next turn. So you could get through a bunch of blocking. He has an 8 range. Get through a bunch of blocking by choosing like improved movement, improved targeting blocking, but not destroy blocking. Just like you ignore blocking for targeting. That could be pretty solid. Witch Queen LaFay at 150. Man, Witch Queen LaFay was always right there because she can use all standard powers except Stealth and Earthbound. But when she misses with an attack, she can't use a special power anymore. So it's kind of a big bummer there. Let's see. Gertrude and Old Lace. Is this the one I used to play? Once per game, generate old... No, this isn't the one I used to play. There was one that I used to play a lot more than this one. And I don't remember... Now I gotta look it up. What set was it from? It was from What If. Yeah, that one I liked a lot better because that one you create the Old Lace bystander, and when they would take damage, you can instead give Gertrude one unavoidable. Now you could just pulse wave, but you would have to pulse wave also Gertrude at that point. But I did like this figure a decent amount. Like Gertrude and Old Lace was solid. Now, not the Battle World one we are talking about, so sorry about the further back look on Memory Road. But let's go back to Battle World. Forget I mentioned anything about Gertrude and Old Lace. This one in Battle World is not particularly good. Wrapping up, now don't forget, Black Panther, 250, means he's got 150 points, more support. This is Gauntlet Panther. Traded super senses, he has Protected Pulse Wave. If he has 150 points, he is KO'd when he crosses the red line. Free, if Black Panther is on click 1 to 6, turn the dial to another click from 1 to 6. Noting his current click. If you do, at the end of your turn, return him to the noted click. So he can kind of like bounce around his dial. When he gets to the later clicks, beyond his, those kind of pseudo pickup powers, he gets Charge Flurry and he makes the zombie warriors. He's still a very solid piece and hard to KO. He's not easy to KO by any means. He can be equipped, so you could give him some fun things. I think you should note him. I think he's potentially playable. Even at 250, I know that seems like a short dial, but he's not easy to KO. And then you have Sheriff Strange really doesn't do anything without ID cards. None of these other ones are really worthwhile to play. Now we're going to the 2019 LEs. I'm going to zip through some of these because we're already kind of spending a little too much time on some of this. Dweller in the Darkness, Nightmare, Baron Mordo. You've got Thane. We had a lot of LEs that year. Storm, Asgardian Storm. Better as a call-in. Not really a good playable piece. Miles and Gwen. I feel like they saw some play in something. I think that was just to bring in the Miles and Gwen. They saw more play as a Jason Wingard piece, which we'll talk about him a little bit, even though he's banned, so we won't talk about him that much. Isaac still exists. 50 points. Generate Isaac bystanders. He has that stop click. He has, Perplex. Pretty solid. Stellarex, Chaos, Lord Gaia. We also got all the rings and the exospecs. Now, don't forget, rings were changed to where now you can equip, I believe, assign 2 rings to somebody. So don't forget that was changed as part of the force construction. And exospecs also exists. I don't think I'm forgetting anybody in these 2019. That was the Marvel one. On the DC side, we had the Chocos, Martian Manhunter. I forgot about that guy. Poison Ivy. The Poison Ivy 65.1 is kind of interesting. She does not have Gotham City Underworld, unfortunately, but she has the during game setup increase the result of your roll for first player by +3. That's interesting. The Batmobile exists as a vehicle and has Gotham City Underworld, which is interesting. Lobo was always a character that was kind of interesting as well. So, interesting as well. Raven, good old Robbie Reed is still out there. You have Robbie, Bat Cycle. You have the Flash, which can, boop across to the opponent's area. When his stop click is shown, which you could do, you could give him an action token after resolution, so he just boops over there. So that's kind of neat as well, but really nothing to write home about of, ooh, this is incredibly good, right? Must play. So now we move on to Earth X. Hopping into Earth X. When Earth X and Battle World came out around similar times, if I remember correctly, Earth X was February 2019, and Battle World was October. So there was a 4-month span, but they kind of lived simultaneously. I felt like they were very similar sets, at least in my head. I know they weren't, but Earth X was kind of an altered version of some of our favorite characters, and that's kind of what Battle World was as well. That being said, the set also didn't have a lot of amazing pieces. Had some more interesting ones in Battle World, I think. Like, you have the Skull, who I believe is still legal. I have to check every single time some of these pieces. Are they still legal? The Skull, Mind Control, when he uses it as a range action, he could target one character regardless of range. Still requires line of fire, but can't target other characters. So he has kind of like a sniper range mind control that could still be stopped by blocking and other characters, but he doesn't need range for it. So that's still good. 40 points, gives you leadership. He just has no keywords. He has Earth X, so kind of disappointing on that front. We do have, I'm just going through Stegron, Fancy Dan, a bunch of these pieces that were interesting, but goodness knows they weren't heavily played. Another title character, Captain America Resilient. It's another title cap that is not amazing. Spider-Woman at 80 points is a prime. Spider-Man Family, Mystics. Free, choose a standard power printed on this card that Spider-Woman can't currently use. She can use that power until your next turn. Would be great, except she can really be one shot because she's only got Shape Change, Spider-Man Family, Super Senses, and then ESD on that top click. You do have Earth X Daredevil. I debate whether this Daredevil is better than the Legacy one. I think the Legacy one's probably better because it's a lot cheaper, but don't forget that this one exists because it was pretty difficult to kill. It was great with the Venom Harness to give him bonus stats. So keep him in mind. 60 points still isn't terrible. 125 point Iron Man, bringing in the Monolith Steel Bow and Sting. Probably not playing this guy, but don't forget his location does exist. And is a pretty good location. Iron Man's workshop, I believe. I'd have to go back and look exactly which one it was, but I believe it's Iron Man's workshop. X51 is probably a no-go, but when you're doing your own review through these pieces, don't forget, once again, we have the Hell Cycle and the Motorcycle that gives basically every movement power that you could ever want. The Venom pieces would be better if they had the symbiote keyword, but they do not. So they're still okay, right? But they don't work in tandem with like Carnage, and that's probably a good thing, right? That they don't work as well as they could. You do have the Ultra Chase Captain Marvel, who you could give running shot to with the Motorcycle or the Hell Cycle. I get them confused. Once per game, when Captain Marvel would be KO'd, instead give him 3 resurrection tokens, place him on this card. At the beginning of your turn, if he's on the card, remove a resurrection token. When the last one is removed, place him on any square along the edge of the map on click 3. Protected Pulse Wave. Cool. His other trait, when Captain Marvel is placed on the map by use of I need 3 years to return, all standard characters that were on the starting force that were KO'd this game are placed on the map and given a spirit token. Friendly characters are placed along the same edge of the map Captain Marvel is and opposing on the opposite edge. Till your next turn, characters placed this way can't be attacked. This game, characters with spirit tokens can't be replaced, can't generate bystanders, and aren't scored. This game, when a character with a spirit token takes damage, remove it from the game immediately. That's just a unique effect that you should be mindful of exists. I don't know if it's any good, I don't think it really is, but in a 400 point game, him being 100 points, something to note. He can shoot through, he ignores elevated and destroy blocking for ranged attacks, so that's neat. And then this set did have the Beetle Pod, Mini Slayer, Web Shooters, Octopus Arms, that's a good one. Giant Reach 2 Flurry, and Improved Movement Elevated. Goblin Glider gives you Flight and Running Shot, that's okay. The Venom Symbiote, Plasticity and Shape Change, that's okay too. Automatically Breakaways, that's solid. But really nothing to write home about from like the commons, uncommons, especially with like Vulture retired or banned. Nothing, not a ton coming from this set. I will briefly mention the Captain Marvel movie. the really only things to mention, Phil Coulson at 50. Phil Coulson starts the game with 3 tradecraft tokens. When an equipment object could be dropped or KO'd, you may remove 2 tokens to instead equip it. That's not as good as before, because everything's assigned now. But he does have Precision Strike, free remove a tradecraft token and KO a standard object held by Phil Coulson or adjacent friendly character. If you do, the person holding the object chooses a standard at tap power to use. That could be useful. So just be mindful of that piece. 75 Phil is not as good anymore. He's still solid. He doesn't modify his speed value when he uses carry. He's got a 12 movement. So he'll get, on small maps, he'll get your team across the map. For sure. He starts with 5 tradecraft tokens, remove 1, and he can choose a standard damage power. That's cool. And then he has a stop click. So maybe he's still good. And then you got Chase Captain Marvel. I still don't think she's probably worth it at 150, as much as you may want her to be. Korath is another one you want to mention. When a friendly character that's adjacent or has the Kree keyword hits, after resolutions, that character may move 1 square. If that friendly character is both adjacent and has the Kree keyword, instead all friendly characters with Kree keyword may move 1 square. That's just something to note for different characters that can use movement. Once they move, they make an attack, right? Keep that in mind. Put that in your memory bank. And then I think we'll finish out this episode, because we still got a little bit more. We're going to finish this episode out on Rebirth, because I forgot there's so many sets now. But we'll start with Rebirth, or end with Rebirth, I should say. Rebirth had a lot of Teen Titans in it. You do have Duke Thomas, which I think is great. Friendly characters making close attacks modify attack +1 for each other friendly character adjacent to their target. 35 points in power. It is a very annoying piece, because it is map-wide effect. So keep that in mind. Very, very strong of just giving that out to everybody. Let's see. Prez Ricard, we have cheaper leaderships. Billy Batson, he's okay for 20 points. Batman, Dolphin, 30 points. Prime Black Adam, probably not. Shade the Changing Girl is interesting. Shape change: when Shade Changing Girl uses and succeeds, you may change the target to a character friendly to the attacking character. 45 points. Perplex, phasing, teleport, plasticity, power. Place Shade the Changing Girl in any square with an unheld object. So kind of booping her over to some place. Perplex, but only to target opposing characters. That's later down dial, so don't worry about that. So Shade's interesting. Mr. Oz is back. There is the nerf to TK. This kind of brings it back to 6 squares instead of 4. So 40 points, still pretty good for that. And the prob with a value of 12 is still really good on short maps. But don't forget, in Silver Age, right, there's still a lot of big maps. Like, all the big maps still exist. So as much as we want short maps, you should be building your team for the bigger maps. And then be excited because of the short map that you might land on. Looking at some of these others, not really much to talk about. Flex Mantello, Superman. The Superman is okay. Now getting into the chases, Red Death is probably a no. Murder Machine, though. Knockback: when Murder Machine KOs an opposing character, after resolutions, he may make an attack, and it can trigger multiple times. Once per turn. This is the Reckless Disregard for life. Once per turn, when Murder Machine targets and hits a single opposing character with a close attack, you're probably not doing that with Murder Machine. When Murder Machine occupies clear terrain, is targeted by a ranged attack, modified defense +1. When targeted by an opposing character that can use stealth, modified defense +1. And when targeted by an opposing character occupying him terrain, modified defense +1. And they stack. And he's got prop control and shape change. He's solid. Like, being able to make multiple attacks is solid. Nothing wrong with that. You've got Dawnbreaker at 75 points, which is fairly easy to take out, but he does have Green Lantern Core, which means he gets the ring. He can use the whole barrier, and when anyone creates bystanders, which includes constructs, you may generate the same bystander, and these bystanders you generate modify combat values +1. So obviously if it's a construct, you wouldn't get that because of the way constructs work. The Drowned, the Merciless, these are beefier pieces that didn't see a lot of play because of how beefy they are, but we're in 400 point land, so it might be better. Like even Barbatos. Friendly characters with the monster keyword can use Batman Enemy, solid. Friendly characters with Dark Knight's keyword can use Stealth. Phasing teleport is free, but only to move up to 4 squares, and when he does after resolutions, adjacent opposing characters have Immobile until your next turn. He's got an attack power that is until down dial, and then he's got a damage power. Opposing characters within 6 squares that can use Outwit, Perplex, or Support can use Battle Fury. So there might be a world where Barbatos is better than before at 100 points. Might be. Not saying there is, just saying there might be. Now once again, I've probably skimmed over a decent amount of characters to talk about. It is... Silver Age is interesting. Now that half of the build has to be Silver Age, now that it's 400 points, some of these pieces, and this was the intent, some of these pieces should be better than they were before. And I think that's true. I think the ones that could be interesting, like people who will succeed in Silver Age are the ones who do the due diligence of going through the Silver Age pieces, finding those diamond in the rough pieces that really needed more points or needed different powers, different characters to utilize their powers, right? And if you want to succeed in Silver Age, I think you're the one that has to go out there, do the research, find that unique case piece that'll fit on your team and activate it. But once again, we're only, I'd say, 2/3 of the way through the Silver Age sets. We've still got quite a bit to go, but we're at Rebirth, and now we'll be moving on next time to, what's next? Avengers, Black Panther, and Illuminati. Ooh, that's a great set to kick off of. So thank you guys for listening to this episode of Whiz. I hope you're gaining something from the Silver Age talk. We've got a Silver Age tournament once again. I believe, is it the 18th or 19th? It is the 18th in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the big regional. Definitely check that out. Next time we'll also talk about some of the Rock Cup announcements and kind of go over that as well for Silver Age. But have a great day and have a great weekend, everybody.